Hey everybody, welcome back to Sophisticakes by Mary, and if you're new here, welcome. For this tutorial, I thought I'd show you what I find to be the easiest way to get the hand-painted floral look on a cake. You don't have to have any painting skills whatsoever. All you do need is access to an edible printer. And if you don't have access to an edible printer, I will try to attach some links below in the description of this video on where you could possibly purchase them and have them shipped to you. But let's get started with the cake. I am using, I think I did 5 layers of vanilla cake and filled it with my bubble-free, pure white American buttercream. So what I'm doing is I'm just adding a layer of buttercream in between each layer of cake. This is our filling. And then I stuck it in the refrigerator for about 20 minutes. Sometimes if you want to use the freezer, you can do 10 minutes in the freezer just to get it to set up. I brought it out and I am doing my crumb coat. I like to use those plastic scrapers because I find that they're lighter weight and they're just more comfortable for me. But you can use whatever you have available. Then I stuck that back into my freezer while I do this. And these are the images that I found online. If you do have an edible printer or access to one, what you need to Google is free printable images. And I think I actually added watercolor floral into that just Google search, because you don't want to use something that is copyrighted. You could get yourself in a little bit of trouble. So just make sure that you add that free into your Google search. And once you find an image that you want, just go ahead and print them out, or have your friend who has an edible printer print them out. And sometimes grocery stores will print them out for you also, if it is not a copyright issue. And typically the copyright issues would be themed things like Sesame Street, Disney, that type of thing. But for a floral image like these, I don't think they'd be quite as picky as they would be with the character ones. But just make sure that it's not a copyrighted image. And then I just go ahead and I'm cutting off the excess. I actually cut off the leaves, a lot of the leaves as well, because my paper was very moist. Very moist. And I was having a hard time cutting it without it ripping, actually, or just kind of tearing apart because it was so fresh. So I just went ahead and cut those off, and then I added them onto the cake where I felt like they looked like they fit in after I attached the bulk of the image. I'm just using, I think I used Satin Ice, either Satin Ice or the Wilton Fondant, because we're going to do a wrap here is what we're going to do. And I find that your fondant that sets up a little bit quicker tends to be a little bit easier to work with for this, because you're not having to wrap it around the edges of the cake, so you have to worry about it tearing so much. And there I was just popping any air bubbles and roll this out to about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch thickness. And I had measured the circumference and the height of my cake, and I am just cutting it down to size, leaving myself a little excess on the bottom because I wasn't sure, because at this point I hadn't done my final coat of buttercream. I wasn't sure how thick it was going to be, so on the top, how much height it would add. So I just added about a little, maybe a little over a quarter of an inch onto the height of that. And then I just am cutting out a piece for the top as well. And just go ahead, and all you have to do is place these where you think you're going to want them to go. You can place them before you attach them, just so you get a rough idea, or actually a final idea of where you're going to want them to be. Now I don't show, but I did add another coat of buttercream, like I said, onto that cake. So when I bring it out and I start and I put this wrap on, you're going to see that it already has another coat. I don't know where that footage went, but it is there. I mean, it has the final coat on it. And I had, at this point, knew how tall my cake was going to be. So I went ahead and I moved those images up. And I'm just scoring a line on the bottom there. I'm just kind of scoring it so that when I attach, which means I'm not cutting all the way through yet. So when I attach my images, like I'm doing here, I'm just using some piping gel. Then I know where to line them up on what part is going to get cut off. I suppose you could cut it off first. You know what, in hindsight, that might have been easier. I don't think it mattered either way. And just try to get all those air bubbles out from underneath the image. And do that with all of your pieces. And honestly, when I was searching for an image, I wanted something that was going to be an image that I could just wrap around the entire cake and not have to cut down, because this does add some extra time. Either way works, but I wanted it to kind of be seamless so that you wouldn't see where the edible image stops and the fondant is underneath it. But I don't think it was actually a problem. I think it still worked just fine. It just would have saved me some time to be able to just attach the image to the fondant and put it on the cake. Or even put the fondant on the cake first and then attach your images. Either way would work. And I'm just adding a little shortening onto the top of the cake to get my fondant to stick. Now you can just make sure your hands are clean and dry, but you can go ahead and use a brush to attach that, or to add that shortening if you feel better about it. But this was not going to be for an order, so it didn't matter so much for my purposes, but that's what I would suggest. Just go ahead and use a brush if you are doing this for an order. And I just flip the cake upside down and I'm cutting off the excess. I just find that that's a little easier to do. You get a cleaner cut, and yeah, it just makes your job easier if you go ahead and do it that way. And now I'm just making sure that the height is good before I cut it. I suppose that would be a better idea, to go ahead and leave that extra on there, because you're going to add that layer of fondant on there too. I'm pretty sure that's why I did this. And then I just I'm rolling up the fondant. It had sat for about, half an hour, 15 minutes to half an hour. Like I said, you have to worry about it crusting over so much when it is a wrap. And just wrap it all the way around your cake. Now, if you find that the shortening is not enough of a hold for you, you can use water, you can use some piping gel, you could even use some simple syrup. Any of those will get your panel to stick. I'm just cutting off the excess where they meet up, and then just blending in that seam and making sure all of those air bubbles are pushed out of the fondant. And just making sure that they're all stuck on there. And I like to put a little bit of piping gel or water in between where the side panel meets the top, just to make sure that it doesn't pull away from each other. And just smooth it down. I just put a little cornstarch on there because it was getting a little sticky with condensation. I needed to make sure that I was able to make sure that the smoother didn't stick to it. Now these are just silk hydrangeas. I bought these to match the pattern, the flowers in the watercolor prints. And I just cut them into smaller bunches, and then I had some more of these. I guess they're kind of peony inspired, or peony-esque silk flowers also, and I'm just attaching them with some buttercream so that those ends aren't sticking into the cake. You could wrap them with some floral tape if you need to. I just really think this is pretty. I love how the silk flowers match the flowers on the edible image. Hydrangeas are one of my favorite flowers. And then I put some on the bottom catty corner just to kind of balance it out a little bit. And again, attached with some more buttercream. Please excuse my cup in the background. I didn't realize that was in there. Then I'm just adding a dab of buttercream to attach some single petals here and there on that fondant, just to kind of merge it all together, add a little touch of a little extra something. And there you go, guys. This one I filmed a little while ago, but I wanted to have some space in between this one and another one that I did that had the toile edible images. I wanted to space those out a little bit so you don't get too much of the same idea. So I hope you liked it, and I hope you give it a go. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch my video. And if you'd like to watch some other videos, go ahead and click on the link to one of these other videos shown here. And if you would like to check out my other social media, I am on Facebook and Instagram under the same name, Sophisticakes by Mary. And please take the time to share, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you know when I upload another video. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next tutorial.